Welcome, Samantha from Jet Closing.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it'll be fun. We're looking at title companies and just trying to explain to people what the heck they are and what they do, and what do they charge? Do I need them? There's so many things in a real estate transaction, and we don't always get it. You go to title. What are title fees? Well, it depends. So, so I thought we'd have
Yep.
some fun with that. Uh,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, well, I would love to share a little bit, kind of a high level overview of what title and escrow does, the reason that we're so important in the transaction. So essentially, in layman's terms, the best way that I describe it is a title and escrow company is the unbiased third party between the lender and then the buyer and the seller. So we gather documents, all the funds, and then we disperse, and we also provide title insurance. So our other main role is really to verify that the title in real estate is legitimately given to the home buyer. So essentially, we make sure that the seller has the rights to sell the property to a buyer. And then, the title insurance protects lenders and buyers from any type of financial loss due to any defects in a title to a property. So I always like to joke title insurance is extremely important and everybody has to have it, but it's very rarely ever used just because of the front end process that we go through in order to verify that, the person selling the property should be selling that property and that everything is free and clear to be moved to the next person. Some examples that I haven't seen come up, but that are the more common ones are any old liens stemming from contractors that maybe have done work on a property previously. Maybe they weren't fully paid, they were unpaid, any homeowners associations that were due or outstanding. Sometimes maybe a falsified or a forged deed or documents and other fraud related issues. And then, any dispute pertaining to owner, be like an unknown heir or something like that that came up down the line. So that's what title insurance is protecting you as a new homeowner from.
Well, I had one once. It was a home in Gilbert, and the lady was selling it, and she had to split the proceeds with her ex-husband, and he
Okay.
wanted her to sell at the peak of the market, and she didn't want to sell. She thought it was still going to keep going up. So finally, when she got ready to sell, and we got the initial title report, because when we
Mm-hmm.
enter a contract, you guys send us, here's the title,
Yes.
here's if there's any liens on it, and here's, she had liens from the IRS of about 60, $70,000. And then another guy had a mechanics lien on there, a business lien of, I think, $38,000.
Oh my gosh.
And we managed to get that one reduced. And by the time she got that house sold, and her husband ex-husband goes, I just want out. I don't,
Yeah.
they each got $75.
Oh my goodness. That is so crazy.
So now sometimes you guys get caught up in areas where the contract doesn't go well,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a little battle about who gets to keep the earnest money, and so you kind of have to jump in and help with that too, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And, we always err on the side of facts. So, whether somebody is my client that came in with the contract or not, we're not going to just give the money back or let them keep the money just because they sent us the deal. We're always going to make sure that we look at the facts of the situation, whatever was in the contract. And if it met the terms to get the earnest money back, or if it met the terms to not be given back, then we're going to err on that side and always take, again, the unbiased and legal way out. And that's what our, title department is responsible for.
Now, running at altitude here says, what about easements and encroachments?
I have not really had a familiarity with those two things, unfortunately. I apologize. I'm not the escrow officer, but I know encroachment is something else that does come up in kind of the commonalities like the unpaid, HOA or the falsified deed. And encroachment is kind of that fourth thing that I could have mentioned as well. That is somewhat not common, but if title insurance is used, and it could be used for that, which from my understanding, an encroachment is, somebody coming on to somebody else's territory or rights. I know that we work in the state of Texas, and that's something that comes up a little bit more or is more looked at there versus a state like Arizona.
Now, this is your website, Jet Closing, and
Yes.
you guys have for us and for clients our nifty little phone app that
Yes.
you're able to log in and see where we're at every step of the transaction. And this is your local Phoenix team. Joseph was going to join us on the call, but he couldn't make it today. And then MJ, I've met him. I haven't met Lauren or Brittany,
Okay.
um, but it's your fees. Tell me how your fees work in a typical real estate transaction.
Yes. So one of the nice things about us is we try to make the process, like you said, as transparent for everybody as possible. So anybody can get in and log in. And we also try to make it very convenient. And we try to make things more affordable to, the actual consumer, which is the buyer and seller. So the nice thing about us is that we offer a flat fee. So any other title company, their settlement fee is going to be based off the price of the home, whereas ours is always going to be $650, and that includes a mobile notary. So signing, when it comes time to sign documents, we're always going to be able to go on your time and go wherever is most convenient for you, which is most of the time your home. We definitely can go into your office as well. So for us, at least here in Arizona, if your home value is at least 250,000 or you're buying or selling, typically the competition's price for their escrow fee is about $860 and ours is $650, so about a $200.
And
And then
title insurance, how is title insurance calculated?
yeah, it just depends on the home. I actually have the rates for that pulled up here, I believe. So it's based off one, there's policy if you're buying a house with that's going to be the lender, and then the homeowner's policy is going to be for the person that typically is selling. But the price of the home as well as the different things that are kind of going into it, how much you put down and whatnot as well, I believe goes into that.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, you probably see all kinds of transactions. Do you have any in your mind that's kind of either the goofiest, scariest, or most difficult that you've ever worked with? Because I
Yes,
got
so
stories.
I have had one. I've been in this industry in October, so I have probably haven't had as many as you, but the most recent that comes to mind is we had somebody that she knew an agent that I had worked with, and she came to me wanting to do a for sale by owner. She was going to sell her home. So we get everything going, everything started great, no problems. And she's trying to sell it in an LLC. And come to find out, the house originally foreclosed, a really long time ago, back 2000. This person admitted that the home foreclosed because her and her ex-husband owned and she didn't want it. So she purposefully, stopped making payments. It foreclosed. And her and her father created an LLC and they bought the foreclosed home, which is a big house after you foreclose, especially the house that you close. So a little bit of a situation that we weren't getting answers on, and it turns out that the people that were wanting to buy the house from her actually her longtime renters, and their lender was even kind of telling them like, hey, this isn't a good deal to go forward with. So luckily that's what title is there for. We figured that out on the front end. We just kind of told them like, hey, unfortunately this is not this property is not able to be insured with any type of title insurance, so we're not going to be able to move forward with this transaction.
Yeah, I've run into some screwy stuff. We have a question here. I have a question. Could someone living in one state buy in another?
Yes, absolutely. And the nice thing about Jet Closing is because we do the mobile notary thing, we can always find someone that's closest to you, regardless of whatever time zone that you're in. And for sellers and cash buyers, and even some lenders, like if you work with someone like Quicken Loans or Rocket Mortgage that doesn't require a wet signature anymore, we actually offer a remote online notary service. So you can sign from your computer. It's kind of in a screen, maybe similar to what me and Rick look like right now, where you do a Zoom call and you sign all your documents through an online portal. But any title company should be able to facilitate that. But one of the main things about us is our convenience, and our tech ability. So we handle those type of transactions a lot. That's why a lot of agents actually use us.
I'm really glad to see the title company's got permission to do notary online.
Yes.
That mostly came about because of COVID. I had a home I was selling for this Russian guy, and it was not going well because title could not figure out who owned the house. It was in an
Mm,
LLC, but the wrong LLC, and it was delayed by 30 days, and it was just a mess. And he didn't own
mhm.
it; somebody else did, and it was just a mess. So we got it sold, and I go over to his place. I didn't live too far, and he goes, "I want to sell my house." I said, "Okay, but before we get started, do you own this one?" He goes, "Yes, of course I do." I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to look it up." So I look it up, and I go, "So who's this name?" He goes, "Oh, that's my daughter." I go, "Well, you don't own the house." I said, "I'm not taking the listing." I walked away. I said, "I'm not, you know." Just
Yes. If you're in an LLC, just have the LLC documents handy because that's the biggest thing is we have to ask for all documents.
yeah, it's a mess, going back talking about digital signing. D. Rit says, "Yeah, that's great. It is such a time saver, especially if you're from out of state." I mean, I've got one right now that's in the deal, and they came down from Washington State and put an offer on a house, but he has to go home, so he's driving back to Seattle next Friday, and so she's going to be here to sign the documents, and he's going to have to sign them remotely. It is so much easier now than it used to be. Uh,
Yep.
it's and when my father passed away, and we had to sell his home, my sister was living in another part of the state. My brother was, and they literally FedExed us everything. And I thought, what? Don't haven't you guys heard of this? You know,
Yep.
can't we digital sign? And they go, well, what do you mean? They didn't know. So um, let's see, how easy for an LLC but not real estate related to buy a house?
Um, in terms of the LLC being in terms of that being the buyer, I think that that's something I see all the time. I see LLCs a lot more than I thought that I ever would. I think that that's very common because most people put it in a trust, and sometimes that is also an LLC. So I see it happen all the time. You just have to create the LLC, make sure you have all the documents for it, and as long as you have all that, it doesn't matter on our end what name it's in.
Yeah, I'm seeing more and more homes in a trust.
Yes.
So especially if they're my age, they've got their home in a trust. And so he's saying, well, like an electrical company. So can an electrical company, it's an LLC, buy a home?
That's a great question. I don't see why not. I think that should be okay, but that might be something I have to get back to you on. I don't know if you know Rick, or if you want to, I can send you my personal information. I can post it in the chat right now. If you want to email me, I can definitely look that up for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're an electrical company and you want to own a few more buildings, I don't see why not.
Yeah. In
Or if
terms
you
of
want
it
to own
being
a house.
residential or commercial,
Yeah. Yeah.
commercial is obviously a different story. We don't do commercial, but in terms of technically the business name being the owner in the LLC, I think that should be okay. But again, if you want to know for sure, please email me and I'm happy to follow up on that for you.
Now, we had one transaction I did once, and it was going horrible. He lived in California, and the address that he gave the lender out here um, ended up being a gas station. And he said he lived there, and we said, no, it's a gas station. And he managed a bunch of um, gas stations. I won't give the name, but it was going terrible, just terrible up to the last minute. And she couldn't get the loan. I felt so bad. The first time in 34 years, she wasn't able to close a loan. It happened on my watch. And we ended up having to send them, you know, um, news that we couldn't get the deal done. And they were livid,
Mm,
and they were demanding to keep the earnest money. And that's when title came in and said, well, actually, no, based on the contract, here's how it works. And the earnest money goes back to the seller or the buyer, because they have every contract has a financing contingency, and
yes.
there's procedures, and it favors the buyer. And
Mhm.
those are worst days for real estate agents when you got to deliver that kind of bad news.
Yes, I know. It's always a bummer when, a deal doesn't, looks like it's going to get done and then it doesn't towards the end, unfortunately.
So your contact information would be right here.
Yes. Yes, that is it. And then I also posted my email here, but I'm always happy to help out. If anybody here that's listening or watching later is a buyer or seller themselves, I always recommend you try to do a little bit of research of your own title companies, as you kind of start the process. It's something that you don't really realize is even a thing, in my opinion, unless you're obviously in the industry or once you've done it once, or you're in it yourself. But just Google, and you can call any title company and ask them what their rates will be. The nice thing about us is you can actually go and make an account and build a fee sheet right on your own and put in, an address as an example, and then, put in a loan amount and a sale amount, and you can actually find out exactly what it will cost you to, close, which is super nice and convenient.
So if they want to sell their house on their own, they can literally go into your website and start going through the process.
Yes,
Say,
absolutely.
look, I'm selling this to Joe, my next door neighbor. Neither one of us have a real estate agent. Can you handle the transaction?
Yep, 100%. You can even go into the resources page on on our website, and I believe in there is an option. I think it's actually once you log in and make an account, there's an option for a contract writing guide, and there's kind of like a blank, guide that you can make and send that over to us.
Now that's a big deal, folks, because you use real estate agents to make sure that legally you're doing everything right. You use them to market your property, to get it on the multiple listing service, to get your home as many eyeballs as you can on your home. That's the first job of a real estate agent. The second job is to make sure that you're compliant. And that's a lot of work. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on. But if you want to sell your home to somebody else and you happen to secure a buyer, you can bypass all of those agents and go directly here to a closing agency, and they'll show you what documents you have to have filled out and what to do. And it's a no-brainer. Most for sale by owners stop and they give up simply because it's so hard to make the appointments. It's so hard to screen the buyers. And then once they get a buyer, they're not sure what to do. And so, this is an option for you. I
Yes,
think
absolutely.
it's tough to be on top of all of those forms and all of the regulations you have to have. I mean, we even have a COVID form now, a COVID disclosure form. So if I get sick in the middle of the transaction, there's language in there now. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. Well,
Yes.
Samantha, I want to thank you for joining us. And I like to interview people in the industry and just kind of find out what's going on out there. And I thought for people that didn't understand what title did, this might be worth a giggle. And have a fantastic Monday. And thank you again for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it. Have a great week, everybody.
All right, take care.
Bye.